I knew I was going to die the moment my stepfather smiled at me. It wasn't the kind of smile that reached his eyes. Marcus never smiled unless someone was suffering, and tonight, that someone was me. His meaty hand grabbed my arm and yanked me from the thin mattress in my attic room. I didn't even have time to scream before my mother, though I'd stopped calling her that years ago, stuffed a rag into my mouth. "Finally getting rid of you," she hissed, her face twisted with hatred. "Should have done this the day your worthless father ran off." I tried to fight, but Marcus was too strong. He bound my wrists with rough rope that bit into my skin, and before I knew what was happening, they were dragging me down the narrow stairs. My bare feet scraped against the wooden steps, splinters digging into my heels. The night air hit me like a slap. Cold. Bitter. A carriage waited in the darkness, its black horses pawing at the ground. Marcus threw me inside like a sack of grain, and I landed hard on the floor, my shoulder screaming in pain. "Where are you taking me?" I tried to say around the gag, but it came out as nothing more than a muffled sound. Marcus climbed in after me, and the carriage lurched forward. My mother didn't even look back as we pulled away from the only home I'd ever known. "Stop squirming," Marcus said, lighting a cigarette. The orange glow illuminated his cruel face. "You're finally going to be useful for once in your miserable life." I glared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. He took a long drag and blew smoke in my face. "Your real father, the bastard who knocked up my wife before I had the misfortune of marrying her, he borrowed money from the Black Fang Pack 20 years ago. A lot of money. Then he disappeared like the coward he was." Black Fang. The name sent ice through my veins. Everyone knew about the Black Fangs. They were the most vicious Leakin pack in the realm. Stories of their brutality kept children awake at night. "The debt still owed," Marcus continued, flicking ash onto the carriage floor. "And since your father's dead, or gone, doesn't really matter which, the debt falls to his bloodline. That's you, girl." I shook my head frantically, trying to speak, trying to beg. "Oh, don't bother." He laughed, and it was the ugliest sound I'd ever heard. "The Black Fang Alpha doesn't care about excuses. Blood debt means blood payment. You're going to die at dawn, and I'm going to collect the bounty for delivering you. Finally, you'll be worth something." The world tilted. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. I was 21 years old, and I was going to be executed for a debt I didn't even know existed, for a father I'd never met. The journey took hours. By the time the carriage finally stopped, my body was numb from the cold and the cramped position. Marcus hauled me out, and I found myself staring at a massive stone fortress that seemed to grow straight out of the mountain itself. Torches blazed along the walls, and I could hear howls echoing in the distance. Guards appeared, enormous men with eyes that flashed gold in the firelight. Lycans. They looked at me like I was already dead. "Delivery for Alpha Rowan," Marcus announced, shoving me forward. "The Ashwood girl. Here to settle her father's debt." One of the guards grunted and grabbed my arm. His grip was iron, and I stumbled as he pulled me toward the fortress entrance. I looked back once and saw Marcus counting coins, his face lit up with greed. My mother hadn't even bothered to come. Inside, the fortress was all stone and shadow. They dragged me through hallways lit by torches, past cells where I could hear moaning and crying. The dungeon. This was where people came to die. Finally, we reached a great hall. It was massive, with a high ceiling and a throne carved from black stone at the far end. Lichens lined the walls. Men and women with predatory eyes and casual violence in their postures. They all turned to look at me as I was thrown to my knees on the cold floor. "Alpha Rowan," the guard announced. "The blood debtor has arrived." The man on the throne rose, and my breath caught. He was huge, with shoulders like a bull and arms covered in scars. His face was hard, all sharp angles and cruel lines. When he smiled, I saw fangs. "So this is what's left of the Ashwood line," he said, his voice like gravel. "A scrawny little human girl." I pulled the gag from my mouth, no one had bothered to stop me. "Please," I said, my voice cracking. I didn't know about any debt. I've never even met my father. This isn't fair. Fair? Alpha Rowan descended from his throne, each step echoing through the hall. Your father stole from me. He took Black Fawn gold and used it to build his pathetic little life, then ran when payment came due. 20 years I've waited. 20 years of interest. He stopped in front of me, his golden eyes boring into mine. Your death won't even begin to cover what's owed, but it's a start. I lifted my chin. I wouldn't beg. If I was going to die, I'd do it with whatever dignity I had left. Brave, he said, almost amused. I'll make it quick. Be grateful for that. He raised his hand, and I watched as his fingers elongated, claws extending, black and sharp as daggers. This was it. This was how I died. I closed my eyes. Stop. The voice cut through the hall like a blade. Deep. Commanding. Ancient. I opened my eyes. Every Leakin in the room had dropped to one knee, heads bowed. Even Alpha Rowan had frozen, his clawed hands still raised. A man walked into the hall, no, not just a man. He moved with a grace that was almost inhuman, like a shadow given form. He was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in black, with silver hair despite a face that looked no older than 30. But it was his eyes that made my breath stop. Silver. Pure silver. Like moonlight captured in a gaze. King Kale, Alpha Rowan said, lowering his hand and dropping to one knee. We didn't expect. Clearly. The Leakin King's voice was soft, but there was power in it that made the air vibrate. He walked past the Alpha without a glance and stopped directly in front of me. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Those silver eyes pinned me in place, seeing through me, into me. Stand, he said. Somehow, I got my shaking legs under me and stood. He was so close I could feel the heat radiating from him. She bears the mark of the moon goddess, he announced, never taking his eyes off mine. She is mine. The hall erupted in whispers. Alpha Rowan shot to his feet. My king, that's impossible. She's human. She has no wolf, no mark. Are you questioning me, Rowan? The temperature in the room dropped. The Alpha immediately bowed his head. No, my king. But the blood debt is paid. Kale's tone left no room for argument. This woman is my blood-bound mate. Anyone who touches her answers to me. I found my voice. I don't understand. I don't have any mark. I'm nobody. For the first time, his expression shifted. Something almost like pity flickered across his features. You have no idea what you are, do you? Before I could respond, he gestured to his guards, massive lichens who made even Alpha Rowan's men look small. Take her to my chambers. See that she's fed and clothed properly. Wait, I tried to protest, but the guards were already moving. One of them lifted me effortlessly, and I found myself being carried out of the hall. I twisted in his grip, looking back. King Kale stood in the center of the room, his silver eyes still locked on me. Alpha Rowan looked furious, his fists clenched at his sides. Put me down, I demanded as we moved through the corridors. I can walk. I'm not. My words died in my throat. My wrist was burning. I looked down and gasped. There, on my skin, was a mark that had never existed before. A crescent moon, glowing with a faint silver light. As I stared at it, the mark pulsed once, like a heartbeat. What was happening to me? Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. The carriage ride to Shadowmere took most of the night. I sat rigid on the velvet seat, my wrists still bound, though now with silk rope instead of the rough cord Marcus had used, staring at the glowing mark on my wrist. It hadn't faded. If anything, it seemed brighter in the darkness of the carriage, pulsing with a rhythm that matched my heartbeat. I traced the crescent shape with my finger, half expecting it to burn, but it felt cool against my skin. Like touching moonlight. The guards King Kale had assigned to escort me hadn't spoken a word since we left the Black Fang territory. They sat across from me, massive and silent, their golden eyes occasionally flicking to my face before looking away. I got the distinct impression they were under strict orders not to interact with me. Fine. I had enough to think about without making conversation with my captors. Because that's what I was, wasn't it? A prisoner with a fancy mark and a velvet seat, but a prisoner nonetheless. The Leaken King had claimed me for reasons I didn't understand, and now I was being taken to his fortress like a piece of property. The thought made my blood boil. I'd spent my whole life being treated like I was worthless, by my mother, by Marcus, by the entire village that knew I was the bastard daughter of a man who'd run away. And now, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I'd been sold to monsters and claimed by a king who looked at me like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. "We're here, miss," one of the guards finally said as the carriage began to slow. I leaned toward the window and immediately wished I hadn't. Shadowmere rose out of the mist like something from a nightmare. The fortress was even larger than the Black Fang stronghold, all black stone and sharp towers that clawed at the sky. Fog rolled across the ground in thick waves, obscuring everything below the castle walls. Even the moon seemed dimmer here, as if the darkness itself was swallowing the light. "This is where the king lives?" I heard myself ask. "This is where you'll live now," the guard corrected, and something in his tone made it sound more like a warning than a statement. The carriage stopped. The door opened, and I was escorted out into the cold night air. The mist curled around my ankles, and I shivered in the thin dress I'd been wearing when Marcus dragged me from my room. It felt like days ago instead of hours. More guards waited at the entrance, a massive iron gate flanked by stone wolves with ruby eyes. They bowed as we approached, and the gates swung open without anyone touching them. Magic. The word whispered through my mind, sending goosebumps down my arms. Inside, the castle was warm but no less intimidating. Torches lined the walls, casting dancing shadows across tapestries that depicted wolves hunting beneath a full moon. The floor was polished black marble that reflected my image like dark water. I looked small and pale and terrified. "This way," the guard said, leading me up a massive staircase. We climbed for what felt like forever, passing hallway after hallway until I was completely lost. Finally, we stopped in front of a heavy wooden door carved with intricate wolf designs. "Your chambers," the guard said, pushing the door open. I stepped inside and stopped short. The room was enormous, bigger than the entire attic I'd lived in my whole life. A four-poster bed draped in deep blue silk dominated one wall. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace large enough to stand in. Thick rugs covered the floor, and floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the misty landscape. There was even a separate bathing room visible through another door, and I could see a copper tub large enough for 3 people. "This can't be right," I said. "This is too. The king's orders." The guard moved to the door. "Someone will bring food and clothing shortly. Don't try to leave. There are guards posted outside, and the castle grounds are patrolled by wolves. For your own safety, stay in your room until you're summoned." Wait, but he was already closing the door. I heard the distinct click of a lock, and then footsteps fading down the hall. I was alone. I walked slowly around the room, touching things to make sure they were real. The silk sheets on the bed. The books on the shelf, actual books, more than I'd ever seen in one place. The silver brush on the vanity. Everything was beautiful and expensive and completely wasted on a prisoner. Because that's what the locked door meant, wasn't it? For your own safety was just another way of saying you're not allowed to leave. I sank onto the edge of the bed and looked at my wrist again. The mark had stopped glowing quite so brightly, but it was still visible, a crescent moon etched into my skin like a brand. King Kale had said I bore the mark of the moon goddess. But I'd never heard of such a thing, and I'd certainly never had any mark before tonight. What did it mean? And why had it appeared the moment the king claimed me? A knock on the door made me jump. "Come in," I called, though I didn't know if whoever was outside could enter through a locked door. The door opened, and a young woman entered carrying a tray of food and a pile of clothing. She was beautiful in the way all lichens seem to be, tall and graceful with golden eyes and honey-colored hair. She set everything down on a table near the fireplace without looking at me. "Thank you," I said. She paused at the door. "The king will summon you for dinner tomorrow evening. Someone will come to prepare you." Then she was gone, the door locking behind her. I ate because I was starving, though I barely tasted the food. Roasted meat, fresh bread, cheese, fruit, all of it far better than anything I'd eaten in years. After, I bathed in the enormous copper tub, scrubbing away the dirt and fear and Marcus's touch until my skin was pink. The dresses that had been left were all beautiful, velvet and silk in deep colors, but I chose the simplest one, a dark green dress that was still finer than anything I'd ever worn. By the time I climbed into bed, exhaustion was pulling at me like an anchor. The sheets were soft, the mattress comfortable, and despite everything, despite the locked door and the glowing mark and the terrifying Lichen king who'd claimed me, I fell asleep almost immediately. I woke to voices outside my door. "She's human. She doesn't belong here. The king has made his decision. Your opinion is irrelevant." "My opinion? Magnus, I'm his sister. I have more right to question this than anyone." I sat up, pulling the blanket around myself. The voices were getting louder. "Lady Esme, please. This isn't the place. I'll discuss it wherever I choose." The door burst open. I barely had time to scramble out of bed before a woman swept into the room like a storm-given form. She was stunning, dark hair cascading down her back, sharp features that could have been carved from marble, and silver eyes that were a shade darker than King Kale's. She wore a gown of midnight blue that probably cost more than my entire village, and she looked at me with such naked hostility that I took an involuntary step backward. "So you're the human my brother has brought into our home," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Behind her, a massive man filled the doorway. He had to be close to 7 feet tall, with shoulders broad enough to block out the light. His face was all hard angles and scars, and his golden eyes assessed me like I was a threat he needed to eliminate. This had to be Magnus, the beta the servant had mentioned. "Lady Esme," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle for such a large man. "The king asked that she not be disturbed." "The king isn't here." Esme moved closer, circling me like a predator. "Tell me, human. What sort of spell have you cast on my brother?" "I haven't cast anything," I said, finding my voice. "I don't even know why I'm here." "Don't you?" She stopped in front of me, and I realized with a start that we were almost the same height. Most lichens towered over me, but Esme was smaller, more delicate. It made her anger seem even more dangerous, like a viper coiled to strike. You arrive with some convenient mark, and suddenly the king of all lichens claims you as his blood-bound mate. Forgive me if I find that suspicious. I didn't ask for this, I shot back, anger overriding my fear. I didn't ask for any of it. I was dragged from my home and sold to pay a debt I knew nothing about. Your brother claimed me before I was executed, and now I'm locked in this room with no idea what's happening or what he wants from me. So if you have answers, I'd love to hear them. Otherwise, get out." The room went silent. Magnus made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Esme's eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might actually strike me. Then she smiled. It wasn't a pleasant expression. "You have spine. I'll give you that. But spirit won't save you here, human. This castle has swallowed stronger creatures than you. Is that a threat? Consider it friendly advice." She turned to leave, then paused. "My brother is not a kind man. Whatever he wants from you, he'll take it. And when he's done, you'll wish Alpha Rowan had killed you quickly." She swept out of the room, leaving Magnus in the doorway. He studied me for a long moment. "For what it's worth," he said finally, the king doesn't claim people lightly. If he says you bear the moon goddess's mark, then you do. But Lady Esme is right about one thing, be careful. The king's attention is both a blessing and a curse. Then he too was gone, and I was alone again with the locked door and my racing thoughts. They came for me as the sun was setting. 2 servants arrived to dress me. Apparently, I couldn't be trusted to prepare myself properly for dinner with the king. They laced me into a gown of deep burgundy that clung to my body in ways that made me uncomfortable, then twisted my dark hair into an elaborate style that left my neck bare. One of them tried to powder over the mark on my wrist, but the makeup wouldn't stick. The crescent moon remained visible, glowing faintly in the lamplight. "The king is waiting," the older servant said, not unkindly. Magnus himself escorted me through the castle. We walked down countless corridors, past more tapestries and portraits and rooms I couldn't begin to identify. Other lichens stopped to stare as we passed, their golden or silver eyes tracking my movement. I heard whispers following in our wake. Human. The mark. King's mate. Finally, we reached a set of double doors carved with wolves and moons. Magnus pushed them open, and I stepped into a dining hall that looked like something from a fairy tale. A long table dominated the center of the room, set with silver plates and crystal glasses. Candles floated in the air without any visible support, casting a warm glow over everything. And at the head of the table sat King Kale, dressed in black with silver embroidery that caught the light. His silver eyes found mine the moment I entered, and I felt that same pull I'd experienced in the Black Fang Hall, like gravity itself was trying to drag me toward him. "Sarah," he said, and hearing my name in his voice sent a shiver down my spine. "Sit." It wasn't a request. I moved to the chair Magnus pulled out for me, not at the far end of the table, but directly to Kale's right. Close enough that I could see the silver flecks in his eyes, close enough to feel the power radiating off him like heat from a forge. Magnus bowed and left, closing the doors behind him. We were alone. "You're angry," Kale observed, lifting a wine glass. "Wouldn't you be?" I kept my voice steady. "I've been kidnapped, locked in a room, threatened by your sister, and I still have no idea why you claimed me or what you want." Direct. "I appreciate that." He set down the glass. "Very well. I'll tell you the truth, though I doubt you'll like it. I haven't liked anything that's happened in the past 2 days. Try me." Something that might have been amusement flickered across his face. "Your father, your biological father, didn't just borrow money from the Black Fang Pack. He stole something far more valuable. An ancient relic called the Moonstone Amulet. I've never heard of it. Few have. The amulet was created by the first lichens, blessed by the moon goddess herself. It holds the power to control the wolf bloodlines, to command any lichen, from the lowest omega to the strongest alpha. In the wrong hands, it could be used to enslave my entire race. I felt the blood drain from my face. My father stole something like that? 20 years ago, he broke into a sacred temple, killed 2 guards, and vanished with the amulet. We've been searching for it, and him, ever since. Kale's eyes never left mine. The debt wasn't gold, Sarah. It was blood magic. Your father bound his bloodline to the amulet's location. Only someone of his blood can find it. That's impossible. I'm just. You're the last of the Ashwood line. Your father is dead. Your mother remarried. You are the only one left who can lead us to the amulet." He leaned forward slightly. "That mark on your wrist? It appeared because your father's magic recognized you. The blood debt has awakened." I looked down at the glowing crescent moon. "So you claimed me to use me." "I claimed you to save your life," he corrected sharply. "If I hadn't intervened, Alpha Rowan would have killed you. The mark means nothing if you're dead. And now? What happens now? Now you help me find the amulet." His voice was steel. "You have until the next full moon, 30 days. If we don't locate it by then, the curse your father placed will complete itself, and you'll die." The blood debt demands either your death or the return of what was stolen. There is no third option. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. You're saying I'm cursed? That I'll die in 30 days? Unless we find the amulet, yes. And if we do find it? What then? You'll have what you want, and I'll be disposable. You'll be free of the curse. He said it like it was obvious. I have no interest in killing you, Sarah. Despite what you might think, I'm not a monster. No? I laughed, and it came out bitter. You're a king who rules through fear, who lives in a castle shrouded in darkness, and who just told me I'm cursed to die in a month. Forgive me if I'm having trouble seeing your benevolent side. His jaw tightened. I didn't create this situation. Your father did. I'm offering you the only chance you have at survival. By making me your prisoner. By making you my ally. He stood, and the movement was so fluid it barely seemed real. He walked to the window, his back to me. I know you don't trust me. I wouldn't either, in your position. But the alternative is death, yours and potentially thousands of others if the amulet falls into the wrong hands. So I'm asking you to put aside your fear and your anger and help me. I stared at his back, at the way the candlelight caught the silver in his hair. He was right, I didn't trust him. But what choice did I have? If I agree to help, I said slowly, I want answers. Real answers. About the mark, about why it appeared, about what it means that you called me your blood-bound mate. No more secrets. He turned, and the intensity in his silver eyes made my breath catch. Some secrets exist for good reason. But yes. I'll tell you what I can. And I want to move freely in the castle. No more locked doors. Within limits. Some areas are too dangerous. Then tell me which areas are off limits instead of treating me like a prisoner. He studied me for a long moment. Then, to my surprise, he nodded. Agreed. Anything else? Just one thing. I stood, meeting his gaze even though everything in me wanted to look away from that penetrating stare. If you're lying to me, if this is some elaborate game and you plan to kill me once you have your precious amulet, I'll make sure you regret it. I might be human and powerless, but I promise you, I'll find a way. For the first time since I'd met him, King Kale smiled. It transformed his face, making him look younger, almost approachable. Almost. I believe you would, he said. Very well, Sarah Ashwood. We have an accord. Tomorrow, we begin searching for the amulet. Tonight, you should rest. The work ahead won't be easy. He moved past me toward the door, and as he did, his hand brushed against mine, just the briefest contact. But where his skin touched mine, I felt a jolt of something electric, something that made the mark on my wrist flare bright silver. Kale stopped. His eyes dropped to my wrist, then back to my face. For just a second, I saw something in his expression: surprise? Recognition? Fear? Then it was gone, and his face was a mask again. Magnus will escort you back to your chambers. Good night, Sarah. He left before I could respond, the doors closing behind him with a soft click. I stood there in the empty dining hall, my wrist burning where he'd touched me, my heart racing for reasons I didn't want to examine too closely. The Leakin King was dangerous. He was using me. I should hate him. So why did some traitorous part of me want him to touch my hand again? That night, I dreamed. I was running through a forest I'd never seen before, my feet bare on the moss-covered ground. The moon was full and huge above me, casting everything in silver light. I wasn't afraid. For the first time in days, maybe the first time in my life, I felt free. Then I saw the wolf. It was enormous, easily the size of a horse, with fur as white as fresh snow. Its eyes were the same silver as King Kale's, but ancient, knowing in a way that had nothing to do with years. It stood in a clearing ahead of me, watching as I approached. Hello, I whispered, not sure why I wasn't terrified. The wolf tilted its head. When it spoke, its voice echoed inside my mind rather than my ears. "Daughter of the moon," it said. "You have forgotten yourself. I don't understand. You are not human." The wolf moved closer, and I realized with a start that I could see through it slightly, like it was made of moonlight and mist instead of flesh and bone. "Your father was not human. Your mother lied. The blood that runs through your veins is not mortal blood. That's not possible. I don't have a wolf. I'm not like them. You have been bound. Suppressed. Hidden." The wolf's eyes blazed brighter. "But the mark has awakened. The truth will follow. Remember who you are, daughter of the moon, before it's too late. Remember before the darkness claims you." "Wait, what darkness? What are you talking about?" But the wolf was already fading, dissolving back into moonlight. Its last words echoed through my mind as the dream began to fracture. "Trust the king. Trust yourself. And whatever you do, do not let them take the amulet." I woke gasping, tangled in the silk sheets, my whole body covered in sweat. The room was dark except for the dying embers in the fireplace. And on my wrist, the crescent moon mark was glowing so bright it cast shadows on the walls. I pressed my hand against my chest, feeling my heart hammering like it was trying to escape. The dream had felt so real. The wolf, the forest, the voice in my head, all of it. "You are not human." No. That was impossible. I'd lived 21 years as a human. I had no wolf, no power, nothing that marked me as anything other than ordinary. But even as I thought it, I knew something had changed. I could feel it in my bones, in my blood, in the mark that refused to fade from my wrist. Whatever I'd been before tonight, I wasn't anymore. And as I sat there in the darkness of my luxurious prison, I couldn't shake the feeling that King Kale knew exactly what was happening to me, and that he'd known all along. Wanting to see what would happen next, subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 3. The morning came too soon and brought Magnus with it. He knocked once before entering. Apparently my agreement with Kale about unlocked doors had already taken effect. I was sitting by the window, still in my nightgown, watching the mist roll across the grounds below. I hadn't slept after the dream. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the white wolf and heard its voice. "You are not human. The king requests your presence in his study," Magnus said. His tone was formal, but not unkind. "I've brought breakfast, and there are riding clothes in the wardrobe. We leave within the hour." "Leave?" I turned from the window. "Leave for where?" "The king will explain." He set a tray of food on the table, fresh bread, cheese, sliced fruit. "Eat quickly. The journey ahead is long, and we won't stop until nightfall." He left before I could ask more questions. I forced myself to eat, though my stomach was twisted in knots, then dressed in the clothes he'd indicated, leather pants that fit surprisingly well, a linen shirt, and a riding coat lined with fur. There were even boots that actually fit my feet. Someone had been paying attention. When Magnus returned, he led me through a different section of the castle, down instead of up this time, through corridors that became progressively rougher and less ornate. We ended up in what looked like a war room. Maps covered every wall, marked with symbols I didn't understand. A large table in the center was cluttered with books, papers, and what looked like old journals bound in cracked leather. Kale stood over the table, his silver hair tied back, dressed for travel in dark clothes that made him look even more dangerous than usual. He glanced up as we entered, and those silver eyes found mine with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "Sarah. Good. Come here." I approached the table, acutely aware of Magnus positioning himself by the door. Kale gestured to the journals. "These belong to your father. I confiscated them from his house the day he fled. They've been in my possession for 20 years. I stared at the worn leather covers. My father's journals. Proof that he'd been real, that he'd existed as more than just a ghost story my mother refused to discuss. My hand moved toward them without conscious thought, Go ahead, Kale said quietly. They're yours by right. I picked up the top journal and opened it. The handwriting was neat, precise, the writing of an educated man. My eyes caught random phrases. The amulet's location must remain hidden. Black Fang grows suspicious. If I'm discovered, they'll come for my daughter. He knew, I whispered. He knew they'd come for me. He knew, Kale confirmed. That's why he encoded the amulet's location in riddles and clues scattered throughout these journals. He wanted to make sure that even if someone found them, they couldn't find the amulet without his bloodline to interpret the clues. I looked up at him. But I don't know how to interpret them. I never knew my father. I don't know anything about. The mark will guide you. He reached out and took my wrist, his touch sending that same electric shock through my system. The crescent moon flared bright silver under his fingers. The blood magic recognizes you. When you read the journals, certain passages will resonate. You'll feel it, a pull, a certainty. That's how we'll know which clues to follow. And if I don't feel anything? His jaw tightened. Then we keep searching until you do. We have 30 days, Sarah. We can't afford to waste time. Magnus cleared his throat. The horses are ready, my king. And I've assigned guards to patrol the castle in your absence. Lady Esme is unhappy about being left behind. Something flickered in Kale's expression. My sister will manage. Let's move. I hadn't ridden a horse in years, not since I was a child and one of the village farmers had let me sit on his old mare. But the black stallion Magnus led out for me was nothing like that gentle creature. This horse was enormous, with eyes that flickered gold and muscles that suggested leaking blood somewhere in its lineage. His name is Shadow, Magnus said, helping me mount. He won't throw you, but he's spirited. Keep a firm grip. Kale swung onto his own horse with fluid grace, a massive white stallion that perfectly matched his silver hair. 4 guards joined us, all mounted on similar impressive horses. We made quite the procession as we rode out through the castle gates and into the mist-shrouded landscape beyond. The journey was grueling. We rode hard, stopping only to rest the horses and eat dried meat and bread from our saddlebags. Kale led us through terrain that grew progressively wilder, forests that seemed too dark, valleys where the shadows moved wrong, rivers that ran black instead of clear. I realized with growing unease that we were passing through territories where his authority didn't necessarily hold sway. These lands belonged to the Ironclaw pack, Magnus explained during one brief rest, catching my nervous glances at the tree line. They're neutral, they won't attack the king's party without cause. But stay close regardless. As the sun began to set, we finally stopped at what looked like an abandoned watchtower. The guards immediately began setting up camp while Kale spread one of the journals on a flat rock and gestured for me to join him. Read, he said simply. Tell me if anything speaks to you. I sat beside him, close enough that our shoulders almost touched, and began to read. At first, the words were just words. My father's careful documentation of his travels, his studies of Leakin history, his growing obsession with the Moonstone amulet. But then, as I turned to a page marked with a pressed flower, something changed. The words began to glow. Not literally, it was more like they were pulling at me, demanding my attention. I felt warmth spread from my wrist up my arm as I read, where the moon touches the earth and silver waters run, the first key waits in the place of my beginning. There, I gasped. That passage, I can feel it. It's connected to the mark somehow. Kale leaned closer, reading over my shoulder. His breath stirred my hair, and I was suddenly, acutely aware of how close he was. The place of his beginning. Your father was born in a village called Silverpine, 3 days' ride north of here. There's a spring there, silver waters. That must be what he's referring to. So we go to Silverpine? We do. He closed the journal, but didn't move away. You did well, Sarah. I wasn't sure the magic would respond to you, given that your powers are still dormant. About that. I turned to face him, which brought us even closer together. The dream I had last night. There was a white wolf, and it told me I wasn't human. It said I'd been bound or suppressed. What did it mean? Cale's expression went carefully neutral. You dreamed of a white wolf? A huge one, with silver eyes like yours. It spoke to me in my head. I watched him closely. You know something. I can see it on your face. He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, the white wolf is a manifestation of the moon goddess. If she appeared in your dreams, it means she's taken an interest in your fate. As for what she told you. He hesitated. Some lichens are born with their wolf suppressed. Usually because of a curse or powerful magic. If that's the case with you, then the blood dead awakening may be triggering your true nature to emerge. So I might actually be lichen? The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I felt a strange sense of relief, like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Is that why you claimed me? Why you called me your blood-bound mate? I claimed you because the mark appeared, he said carefully. And because I couldn't let Rowan kill you. The rest, we'll understand more as your powers awaken. If they awaken. He stood abruptly, putting distance between us. Get some rest. We ride at dawn, and the path to Silverpine passes through Bloodcrest territory. They won't be as accommodating as the Iron Claws. I wanted to push, to demand more answers. But exhaustion was pulling at me like an undertow, and the mark on my wrist had started to ache. I found a spot near the fire the guards had built and wrapped myself in the bedroll Magnus provided. Through the flames, I could see Cale standing watch, his silver eyes reflecting the firelight. Trust the king, the white wolf had said. But how could I trust someone who kept so many secrets? The next 2 days passed in a blur of riding, camping, and reading journals by firelight. I found 3 more passages that resonated with the mark, each one cryptic, each one pointing toward Silverpine. Cale grew more tense the farther north we traveled, and the guards kept their hands on their weapons at all times. Bloodcrest Pack territory, Magnus explained on the 3rd morning as we entered a forest where the trees grew so thick they blocked out most of the sunlight. Their alpha, Grayson, has never forgiven King Cale for taking the throne. Stay alert. But it wasn't Bloodcrest wolves that concerned me. It was the way Cale kept looking at me, like I was a mystery he was desperate to solve but afraid of the answer. And it was the strange things happening to my body. My senses had gotten sharper. I could hear conversations between the guards that should have been too far away. I could smell things on the wind, rain coming hours before it arrived, the distinct musk of wolves in the forest around us. And my strength had increased. When Shadow stumbled on loose rocks, I steadied him with one hand, and the ease of it shocked me. Most disturbing of all was the pull I felt toward Cale. It had started as simple awareness, my body tracking his location without conscious thought. But it had grown into something more intense, more undeniable. When he was near, my skin felt too hot. When he touched me, even accidentally, it was like lightning striking. And at night, I dreamed of silver eyes and whispered words I couldn't quite remember when I woke. On the 3rd evening, Magnus pulled me aside while Cale was consulting with the guards. You're changing, the beta said bluntly. I can see it. Smell it. I wrapped my arms around myself. I don't understand what's happening to me. You're experiencing the early stages of a mate bond. He kept his voice low. It's what happens when 2 lichens who are destined for each other first meet. The bond draws them together, makes them more aware of each other. Eventually, if completed, it ties their souls together. But I'm human. Are you? Magnus' golden eyes were intent. Because you don't smell human anymore, Sarah. You smell like lichen. Like power that's waking up. The king said my powers might be suppressed. If they are, the bond is breaking through the suppression. Mate bonds are powerful magic, older and stronger than almost anything else. He glanced toward Cale. The king is fighting it. I can see the struggle in him. But the bond doesn't care about his control or his plans. It will force the connection whether he wants it or not. Why would he fight it? Magnus' expression went grim. Because mate bonds make you vulnerable. They give your enemies a weapon to use against you. And the king has many enemies, Sarah. He's kept himself isolated for 100 years, never allowing anyone close enough to be used as leverage. Until you. I thought about that as we made camp for the night. Cale disappeared into the forest to hunt, something he'd been doing every evening, returning with fresh game that he cleaned and cooked himself, refusing to let the guards do it. I wondered if it was because he needed the space, the distance from me and whatever this bond was doing to both of us. I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice when one of the guards approached until he spoke. Miss Ashwood? There's something you should see. He led me a short distance from camp to where a stream cut through the rocks. Floating in the water, just visible in the twilight, was a piece of parchment weighted down by a stone. I found it while filling the water skins, the guard said. It has your name on it. Dread coiled in my stomach. I reached into the icy water and pulled out the parchment. The ink hadn't run, it had been treated with something waterproof. And the handwriting was elegant, feminine. Dear Miss Ashwood. You don't know me, but I have your best interests at heart. The king is using you to find the amulet. Once he has it, you become a liability, one he will eliminate. If you want to survive, I can help. I can get you away from him before it's too late. Leave tonight during the 3rd watch. Follow the stream north. I'll be waiting. A friend. My hands shook as I read it again. It could be a trap. It probably was a trap. But what if it wasn't? What if Cale really was planning to kill me once he had the amulet? Trust the king, the white wolf had said. But the wolf wasn't the one who would die if I made the wrong choice. Miss? The guard looked concerned. Should I inform the king? No. I crumpled the parchment and shoved it in my pocket. It's nothing. Just, don't mention it to anyone. He nodded, though he looked uncertain, and we returned to camp. Cale was already back, skinning a rabbit by the fire. His eyes found mine immediately, and I saw his nostrils flare slightly, scenting my fear, probably. I forced myself to smile and moved to help prepare dinner, my mind racing. What was I going to do? I waited until the 3rd watch. The camp was quiet except for the crackling fire and the soft sounds of sleeping men. The guard on duty, a young Leakin named Finn, was positioned on the far side of camp, watching the forest. I slipped from my bedroll as silently as I could, my heart hammering so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. I took 3 steps toward the stream before a hand clamped around my arm. Going somewhere? Cale's voice was soft, dangerous. He'd been awake. Of course he'd been awake. I was just. Don't lie to me. He pulled me farther from camp, into the shadows between the trees. His eyes were blazing silver in the darkness. I can hear your heartbeat. I can smell your fear. What happened? I could have kept lying. Should have kept lying. But something in his expression, concern beneath the anger, made me pull out the crumpled parchment instead. He read it by moonlight, his jaw tightening with each word. When he finished, he crushed it in his fist. A friend. How convenient. Is it true? I demanded. Are you going to kill me once you have the amulet? No. The word was sharp, final. Sarah, if I wanted you dead, you'd already be dead. I told you, I'm trying to save your life. Then who sent this? Someone who wants you away from my protection. He moved closer, and I found myself backing against a tree. Someone who knows that alone in these woods, you'd be easy prey. This isn't a rescue offer, Sarah. It's bait for a trap. How do I know you're telling the truth? You don't. He braced one hand against the tree beside my head, leaning in until I could feel his breath on my face. You have to decide. Trust me, or trust a note from a stranger who wants to lure you into the dark. But decide quickly, because... A howl split the night. Then another. And another. The sounds came from all directions, surrounding us. Get back to camp. Kale shoved me behind him, his body already shifting, bones cracking, muscles expanding. Magnus. We're under attack. I ran. Behind me, I heard snarling, screaming, the clash of weapons. The guards were pouring out of their bedrolls, weapons drawn. Magnus grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the center of camp where the fire burned brightest. Stay close to me, he ordered, drawing an enormous sword. Wolves poured out of the forest, not lichens in human form, but full wolves, their eyes gleaming in the firelight. I counted at least a dozen before I lost track. They moved like shadows, attacking from all sides at once. And leading them, still in human form, was Alpha Rowan Blackfang. Hello, King Kale, Rowan called, his voice dripping with mockery. Fancy meeting you so far from your fortress. Almost like someone told me exactly where you'd be. Kale, now in his massive wolf form, white fur gleaming like snow, snarled. Even on 4 legs, he was the largest creature I'd ever seen. This ends now, Blackfang, Magnus shouted. You're attacking the king. This is treason. Treason? Rowan laughed. I'm simply collecting what's owed to me. The girl was promised for my blood debt. The king interfered. Now I'm taking what's mine. His eyes, golden and full of hate, locked onto me. There you are, little human. Did you really think you could hide behind the king forever? 3 of Rowan's wolves broke formation and charged directly at me. Magnus moved to intercept, his sword flashing. Kale roared and leaped, crashing into one of the attackers. But there were too many. One of them got through. I saw the wolf's jaws opening, saw the saliva dripping from its fangs. Saw my death coming. And something inside me snapped. Heat exploded through my body, not painful, but intense, like every cell was suddenly on fire. I heard my bones cracking, felt my muscles tearing and reforming. My vision sharpened impossibly, and suddenly I could see every detail. The individual hairs on the wolf's face, the flecks of amber in its golden eyes, the scars on its muzzle. My hands hit the ground, but they weren't hands anymore. They were paws, silver-furred paws with black claws that dug into the earth. I felt powerful, fast, primal. I felt alive. The attacking wolf skidded to a halt, its eyes going wide. Around the camp, the fighting stopped. Everyone, Kale's guards, Rowan's wolves, even Magnus, was staring at me. At the silver wolf I'd become. Impossible, Rowan breathed. But I barely heard him. The transformation was incomplete, I could feel it. I was caught between forms, part human and part wolf, trembling with power I didn't know how to control. The wolf inside me was howling, trying to break free completely, and I didn't know how to let it. Then Rowan's eyes narrowed. Kill her. Kill her now before. He never finished the sentence. Kale slammed into him with the force of an avalanche, his massive jaws closing on Rowan's shoulder. The other wolves scattered, some fleeing into the forest, others rushing to their alpha's aid. Magnus and the guards surged forward, and the camp dissolved into chaos again. I tried to move, to help, but my half-formed body wouldn't cooperate. The power inside me was too much, too wild. I felt myself collapsing, the strength draining out of me as quickly as it had come. Strong arms caught me before I hit the ground. Arms that were human-shaped again. I looked up through blurring vision and saw Kale's face, his silver eyes blazing with something that looked like fear. I knew, he whispered, his voice rough. From the moment I saw you, I knew what you were. The mark was just confirmation. What am I? His hand cupped my face, and I felt the mate bond pulse between us, acknowledged, undeniable. You're not just my mate, Sarah. You're the lost heir of the Silver Moon Pack. The bloodline everyone thought died out 70 years ago. The world was fading, darkness creeping in at the edges of my vision. I heard fighting still, heard Magnus shouting orders, heard Rowan screaming in rage. But all I could focus on was Kale's face above mine. Why does that matter? Because the Silver Moon Pack were the original guardians of the Moonstone Amulet. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, a gesture so tender it shocked me. Which means you don't just know where it is, Sarah. You're bonded to it. You are the key to controlling it. I don't understand. And there are people, powerful people, who will kill us both to keep that secret buried. To keep you from claiming what's rightfully yours. He lifted me in his arms as the darkness finally pulled me under. His last words followed me into unconsciousness, but I won't let them. I swear to you, I won't let them take you. The last thing I felt before everything went black was the mate bond wrapping around us both like chains made of silver light, binding us together whether we wanted it or not. And somewhere in the darkness, I heard the White Wolf's voice one more time. Now you begin to remember, daughter of the moon. Now the real battle begins. If you're still listening to this story up to this point, why don't you subscribe to this channel to continue getting impactful daily stories like this? We would be most grateful if you can do that to help boost this video to reach everyone. Thank you. Chapter 4. I woke to silver light and the scent of moonflowers. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming again, back in that forest with the White Wolf. But the bed beneath me was too real, the silk sheets too soft. And the ache in my bones was definitely not something from a dream. Easy. A hand touched my shoulder, gentle but firm. You've been unconscious for 2 days. Your body is still adjusting to the transformation. I turned my head and found Magnus sitting beside the bed, his usual stern expression softened with what looked like concern. We were in a room I didn't recognize, smaller than my chambers at Shadowmere, with stone walls and a single window that let in moonlight. Where are we? My voice came out as a croak. Safe house, about a day's ride from where you were attacked. The king thought it best to move you somewhere more secure. Magnus helped me sit up, propping pillows behind my back. How much do you remember? Flashes came back in fragments. The note. Rowan's attack. The heat exploding through my body. The feeling of bones breaking and reforming. Silver fur. Claws. Power. I changed, I whispered. I became a Leakin. A silver wolf, to be precise. Magnus poured water from a pitcher and handed me the glass. One of the rarest bloodlines. I've only seen one other in my lifetime. I drank, my mind racing. Kale said I was the heir to the Silver Moon Pack. That what did he call me? Seraphine Silvermoon? That's your true name. The name you were born with. Magnus settled back in his chair. The king wants to explain everything himself, but he's been dealing with the fallout from the attack. Alpha Rowan escaped, but we captured 3 of his wolves. And there's been. He hesitated. Other developments. Troubling ones. What kind of developments? The kind the king should explain. Magnus stood. I'll tell him you're awake. He'll want to see you immediately. He left before I could ask more questions. I pushed back the blankets and discovered I was wearing a clean nightgown. Someone had bathed me and dressed me while I was unconscious. The thought made me uncomfortable, but not as uncomfortable as the realization that I could smell things I shouldn't be able to smell. Magnus' scent lingered in the room, pine and steel and something distinctly wolf. I could hear conversations happening floors below me. And when I looked at my hands, I could see silver light dancing beneath my skin. The mark on my wrist was no longer just a crescent moon. Now it was surrounded by intricate patterns, Celtic knots and symbols I didn't recognize, all glowing with that same silver light. Beautiful, isn't it? I jerked my head up. Kale stood in the doorway, looking like he hadn't slept in days. His silver hair was loose around his face, his clothes rumpled, and there were shadows under his eyes. But when he looked at me, something in his expression made my breath catch. Relief. Raw, unguarded relief. You're awake, he said, crossing the room in 3 long strides. Before I could react, he pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. Thank the goddess. I thought, when you collapsed, I thought. I'm okay, I managed, my face pressed against his chest. I could feel his heart racing, hear it thundering in my enhanced ears. Cale, what's happening to me? He pulled back, but only far enough to frame my face with his hands. His thumbs brushed my cheekbones, and the mate bond flared between us, stronger now, undeniable. Everything I'm about to tell you will sound insane. But I need you to listen. All of it is true. He helped me back onto the bed and sat beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. Then he took a breath and began. 70 years ago, there were 5 great Leakin packs. The strongest was the Silver Moon Pack, ancient, powerful, beloved by the moon goddess herself. Their alpha, Lucian Silvermoon, and his mate, Celeste, ruled with wisdom and strength. They had one child. A daughter named Seraphine, born under a blood moon. My heart was already pounding. That's me. You're that daughter. Yes. His hands found mine, holding tight. When you were only 6 months old, the Silver Moon Pack was attacked. It happened during a gathering. All the alphas and their inner circles were present, including my father, who was king at the time. Someone had poisoned the wine with silver and wolfsbane. The Lycans who drank it lost their ability to shift, becoming vulnerable. I could see the memory of it haunting his eyes. You were there. I was 25. Old enough to fight, too young to understand the politics behind it. His jaw tightened. Masked attackers came in the night. They slaughtered everyone, alphas, elders, children. My father died trying to protect Alpha Lucian. By dawn, the Silver Moon Pack was gone. Every member dead. Or so we thought. But I survived. Your mother, Celeste, had suspected something was wrong. She'd hidden you with a trusted friend, a Leakin named James Ashwood, your father. He was the Pax Beta, a scholar who'd been studying the Moonstone Amulet. When the massacre happened, he fled with you into the human world. He used powerful magic to suppress your Leakin nature, to hide you from anyone who might be searching. The journals. My father's journals about the amulet. He wasn't a thief. He was protecting me. He was protecting you and the amulet both. The Silver Moon Pack were its guardians, had been for generations. The amulet responded to your bloodline's magic. James knew that whoever orchestrated the massacre wanted the amulet, wanted the power to control all Lycans. So he hid you, and spent 20 years leaving false trails and cryptic clues. Until someone caught up with him. Cale nodded grimly. James died 10 years ago. The official story was that he abandoned his family and disappeared. The truth is he was murdered, by the same people who destroyed your pack. They've been searching for you ever since, following the blood debt trail Marcus unwittingly created when he sold you to Rowan. I pressed my hands to my temples, trying to process everything. But you knew. When you saw me in Rowan's hall, you knew who I was. The moment I saw you, I felt the mate bond snap into place. That alone told me you were Leakin, not human. Mate bonds only form between our kind. Then I saw the mark appear on your wrist, and I knew. His voice went soft. You have your mother's face, Sarah. Seraphine. I remember her from before. She was kind to a young prince who was terrified at his first alpha gathering. When I saw you, it was like seeing her ghost. Tears burned in my eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Why all the secrets? Because I wasn't sure who I could trust. The massacre was an inside job, someone with access to the gathering, someone who knew the guard rotations and could poison the wine without being detected. For 70 years, I've been trying to find out who. And now, his expression went dark. Now I know. Something in his tone made dread coil in my stomach. Who? Counselor Theron. The name meant nothing to me, but I could see what it meant to Cale. Betrayal. Rage. Pain. My most trusted advisor, he continued, his voice tight. The man who helped me take the throne after my father died. Who's been by my side for 70 years. He orchestrated everything, the massacre, the framed job on your father, the blood debt curse. He's been searching for you, waiting for the curse to lead him to the amulet. But why? What does he want? Power. Kale stood and began pacing. The Moonstone amulet can control any Leakin, make them obey without question. In the wrong hands, it's a weapon that could enslave our entire race. Theron wants to use it to overthrow me, to make himself king and bend every pack to his will. How did you find out it was him? One of the wolves we captured from Rowan's attack talked. Rowan wasn't acting alone, he was being paid and supplied with information about our location. The wolf didn't know the name of Rowan's benefactor, but he described him. Silver hair turning white. A scar on his left hand shaped like a crescent moon. Kale's hands clenched into fists. Theron has that exact scar. I gave it to him myself, 70 years ago, during sparring practice the day before the massacre. The pieces were falling into place. He knew where we'd be because he's your advisor. He probably helped plan your route. Yes. And there's more. Kale's expression turned anguished. My sister, Esme, has been feeding him information. One of the captured wolves recognized her. She visited Rowan's territory 3 days before the attack to tell them where we'd be. I thought of the beautiful, angry woman who'd burst into my room. She was in love with you. She wanted to be my queen. When I claimed you as my mate, He shook his head. I should have seen it. Should have realized how desperate she'd become. Where is she now? Locked in her chambers under guard. I can't bring myself to see her yet. The pain in his voice was raw. She's my sister. I raised her after our parents died. And she betrayed me, betrayed you, to a man who wants us both dead. I stood and went to him, placing my hand on his arm. The mate bond hummed between us, and I felt his emotions bleeding through, rage and grief and guilt all tangled together. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? If I'd been more careful, if I'd seen Theron's true nature. He fooled everyone for 70 years. You can't blame yourself for that. I squeezed his arm. What do we do now? Kale's silver eyes met mine, and I saw determination there beneath the pain. Tonight is the full moon. The 30th day since the blood debt was activated. Theron will attempt the ritual tonight, he has to. After tonight, the curse will either kill you or dissipate, and he'll lose his connection to the amulet. So we stop him. It's not that simple. Theron has been planning this for decades. He'll have gathered forces, prepared defenses. And you, he touched my face gently. You're still learning to control your wolf. You partially shifted during the attack, but you couldn't maintain it. In a battle against Theron's trained warriors, you'll be vulnerable. Then teach me. We have until tonight, right? Show me how to shift. Sarah. Seraphine, I corrected. The name felt right on my tongue, like coming home. My name is Seraphine Silvermoon. I'm the heir to the Silver Moon Pack, and that amulet is mine to protect. So teach me how to fight for it. A smile flickered across his face, the first real smile I'd seen from him. You sound like your mother. She was fierce too. Good. I lifted my chin. Then let's make sure I can honor her memory by surviving this. The hours before sunset were a blur of training and preparation. Kale took me to a clearing behind the safe house, far enough from the building that we wouldn't be disturbed. Magnus and 2 guards stood watch while Kale taught me the basics of shifting. It's not about forcing the change, he explained, circling me. It's about letting go. Your wolf is already there, inside you. You just have to stop fighting her. I'm not fighting. You are. I can feel it through the bond. You're holding on to your human form because you're afraid of what you'll become. He stopped in front of me, his eyes intense. But your wolf isn't something separate from you, Seraphine. She's you. The truest version of yourself. I closed my eyes and tried to feel what he was describing. And there, beneath my heartbeat, I felt it, a presence. Wild. Powerful. Patient. My wolf, waiting for me to acknowledge her. Hello, I thought. The response was immediate, a surge of joy and recognition. Images flooded my mind, running through forests, hunting beneath the moon, the sensation of wind in my fur. My wolf had been there all along, suppressed but never gone. I'm sorry, I told her. I didn't know you were there. Warmth filled me, like being embraced. Then a single thought, clear as a bell, shift. I let go. The transformation was easier this time, still painful, still intense, but no longer terrifying. I felt my bones reshaping, my muscles reforming. Fur sprouted along my arms, and my hands became paws. But this time, I didn't fight it. I let the change take me completely. When I opened my eyes, the world had transformed. Colors were different, less vibrant but more detailed. Scents exploded around me, earth and pine and the distinctive musk of the wolves watching me. And I could hear everything, Magnus' steady heartbeat, the guard's nervous breathing, even the mice in the grass 10 yards away. Beautiful, Kale's voice echoed in my mind, and I realized with a start that we could communicate this way. The mate bond allowed it. You're a perfect silver wolf. Just like your mother. I looked down at myself, at paws covered in silver fur that seemed to glow in the fading sunlight. I was smaller than Kale's massive white wolf form, but there was power in my compact frame. Speed and agility instead of raw strength. Now run, Kale said, and shifted himself. We ran together through the forest, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt free. My wolf reveled in the movement, in the sensation of muscles working and ground disappearing beneath my paws. Kale ran beside me, matching my pace, occasionally bumping against me in a gesture that felt affectionate. You're a natural, he said as we looped back toward the clearing. Most new lichens take weeks to achieve this level of control. I've been suppressed for 21 years, I replied, marveling at how easy this mental communication felt. My wolf is making up for lost time. When we shifted back to human form, I was breathing hard but grinning. Kale looked at me with something that might have been pride. You'll do. Now let's work on your combat skills. The next hours were brutal. Kale didn't hold back, teaching me how to use my claws, how to target vulnerable spots, how to leverage my smaller size and speed against larger opponents. By the time the sun began to set, I was covered in bruises and scratches, but I could hold my own, at least for a few minutes. It'll have to be enough, Kale said as Magnus approached with news that preparations were complete. Theron will be performing the ritual at the old Silver Moon territory, what's left of it. It's the only place with enough residual magic to power the spell he needs. How many warriors will he have? I asked, accepting the clothes Magnus handed me. Unknown. But we can assume significant numbers. Kale's expression was grim. I've called in every loyal alpha I can trust. We'll have maybe 50 warriors. Theron could have twice that. And your sister? I had to ask. What about Esme? Kale's jaw tightened. She's made her choice. She stays locked up until this is over. My king. One of the guards approached, nervous. There's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent. I gave orders not to be disturbed. It's Lady Esme. She escaped her chambers. She says she knows how to stop Theron. The temperature in the clearing seemed to drop. Kale's eyes flashed silver, and I felt his rage through the bond, hot and barely controlled. Bring her. Now. 2 minutes later, Esme was dragged into the clearing by guards. She looked terrible, her beautiful face was tear-stained, her dark hair tangled, and her dress was torn. When she saw Kale, she fell to her knees. I'm sorry, she sobbed. Kale, I'm so sorry. I was jealous and stupid and I didn't know Theron was planning all this. I thought he just wanted to scare the human away so you'd choose a proper mate. I didn't know he was the one who killed our parents. I didn't know. Enough. Cale's voice could have frozen fire. You betrayed me. You betrayed Sarah. You helped a traitor and a murderer. Why should I listen to anything you have to say? Because I can help. Esme looked up, her silver eyes, so like her brother's, pleading. Theron trusted me. He told me things. I know about the ritual, about his plans. I know his weaknesses. Let me help make this right. Please. Cale stared at her for a long moment. I could feel the war raging inside him through the bond, love and betrayal, hope and rage. Finally, he spoke. Tell me everything. And if you're lying, if this is another trick, I will personally ensure you spend the rest of your life in a silver-lined cell. Sister or not. Esme nodded frantically. The ritual requires blood from the silver moon heir, from Seraphine. That's why he needed her alive. He plans to drain her during the full moon, use her blood to bond the amulet to himself. But there's a weakness. If the true heir claims the amulet first, performs the bonding ritual willingly, then Theron's magic won't work. The amulet will reject him. How do we find the amulet? I asked. It's in the ruins of the Silver Moon Great Hall. Your father hid it in plain sight, built into the foundation stone beneath where the Alpha throne once stood. Esme turned to me. You'll feel it when you're close. The amulet will call to your blood. Cale was already moving, barking orders. Magnus, gather everyone. We leave immediately. Full battle formation. Assume we'll be outnumbered and plan accordingly. As the clearing erupted into organized chaos, Esme remained kneeling. I walked over to her, crouching down so we were eye to eye. Why? I asked quietly. Why did you help him? Because I loved my brother, and I was terrified of losing him. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. We're all we have left, our whole family died in that massacre. When Cale claimed you, I thought he was choosing you over me. Over his own blood. I was wrong. And I'm so sorry. I studied her for a moment, then held out my hand. Help us stop Theron. Fight beside us. Prove you mean it. She stared at my hand like it was a lifeline. Then she grasped it, and I pulled her to her feet. I will. I swear on our parents' graves, I'll help you. Cale had been watching. When our eyes met, I saw a question in his. I nodded. Whatever Esme had done, she was trying to make it right. And we needed every advantage we could get. Arm her, Cale ordered Magnus. But keep her in sight at all times. If she so much as looks suspicious, kill her. Esme didn't flinch at the order. Understood. The journey to the Silver Moon ruins took less than an hour at wolf speed. We ran as a pack, 50 warriors and one very new Leakin who was trying not to panic about the battle ahead. Cale ran at the front, his massive white wolf form cutting through the forest like a blade. I ran near the center, flanked by Magnus and 2 guards who'd been assigned to protect me. How are you holding up? Cale's voice in my mind was a comfort. Terrified, I admitted. But ready. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Just stay close to Magnus. And Seraphine? Yes? Whatever happens tonight. I want you to know that claiming you was the best decision I've ever made. The mate bond flared warm between us, and I felt the truth of his words. Same, I told him. Even if you are a brooding, secretive Leakin king. His mental laugh was the best thing I'd heard all day. Then we crested a hill, and the ruins came into view. The Silver Moon territory had been beautiful once, I could see the ghost of it in the remaining structures. Stone buildings overgrown with vines. A courtyard where trees now grew through cracked pavement. And in the center, the Great Hall, or what was left of it. The walls still stood, but the roof was gone, leaving the interior open to the sky. The full moon was just beginning to rise, huge and silver on the horizon. And standing in front of the ruins was an army. I shifted back to human form, we all did, and stared at the force Theron had assembled. At least 100 warriors, maybe more. They stood in formation, armed and ready. And at their center, on a raised platform built from the rubble, stood Counselor Theron himself. He was tall and distinguished-looking, with silver hair streaked with white and cold blue eyes. The crescent-shaped scar on his left hand was visible even from this distance. He smiled when he saw us. "Kale. How good of you to come." His voice carried across the clearing. "And you brought the girl. Perfect. This will be easier than I thought." "It's over, Theron." Kale's voice rang with authority. "I know what you did. The massacre. The lies. All of it. Surrender now, and I'll make your death quick." "Surrender?" Theron laughed. "My dear boy, you've already lost. Look around you. I have superior numbers, superior position, and," he gestured, and 2 of his warriors dragged something forward. A stone altar carved with symbols. "Everything I need to complete the ritual. All I require is the girl's blood, and the moonstone amulet will be mine." "The amulet will never accept you," I called out, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "It was made for the Silver Moon bloodline. I'm the heir, Theron. And I'm going to stop you." "The heir?" Theron's eyes glittered with malice. "You're a child playing dress-up in your mother's legacy. You've been leaking for less than a week. You think you can stand against me? I've been planning this for 7 decades. I destroyed your entire pack when you were an infant. What makes you think tonight will be any different? Because this time, she's not alone." Kale stepped forward, and I felt power rolling off him in waves. "And this time, I know who my real enemy is." Theron's smile faded. "So be it. Take them. Kill everyone but the girl, I need her alive." The army surged forward. "Hold the line." Magnus roared, and our 50 warriors braced for impact. The battle was chaos. Wolves collided with wolves, claws and fangs flashing in the moonlight. I shifted and threw myself into the fray, my new instincts taking over. Dodge. Strike. Use your speed. Don't let them corner you. I lost track of time. There was only the next opponent, the next attack to avoid. My silver fur was soon matted with blood, some mine, some not. Around me, I could hear the sounds of battle, snarls and screams and the wet sound of claws tearing flesh. "Seraphine." Kale's voice in my mind, urgent. "Get to the Great Hall. Find the amulet. That's the only thing that matters. But go. I'll cover you." I saw him then, his massive white wolf cutting through enemies like they were nothing, creating a path toward the ruins. Magnus and Esme flanked him, protecting his sides. I didn't hesitate. I ran. Warriors tried to stop me, but I was faster. I dodged and weaved, using my smaller size to slip through gaps in their formation. Someone's claws raked across my side, burning like fire, but I kept going. The Great Hall was close. So close. I burst through the ruined entrance and shifted back to human form. Inside, the hall was even more destroyed than it had looked from outside. The floor was cracked, with grass and flowers growing through the breaks. But at the far end, I could see it, a raised platform where the Alpha throne had once stood. And beneath it, I felt something calling to me. A pulse of power that resonated in my bones. I ran to the platform and dropped to my knees, clawing at the broken stone. My fingers found a crack, and I pulled. The stone came away, revealing a hollow space beneath. Inside, wrapped in silver cloth, was the moonstone amulet. It was smaller than I'd expected, a pendant carved from stone that seemed to glow with inner light. The stone itself was the color of the moon, silvery white with veins of deeper gray running through it. When I picked it up, it felt warm in my hand. Alive. Yes, a voice whispered in my mind, neither male nor female, ancient and powerful. You are the heir. You are the guardian. Bond with me, daughter of the silver moon. Claim what is yours. How? I asked aloud. Blood and will. That is all that's required. I didn't have a knife, but I had claws. I shifted partially, just my hand, and dragged one claw across my palm. Blood welled up, bright red in the moonlight. I pressed my bleeding hand against the amulet. I am Seraphine Silvermoon, I said, my voice echoing in the empty hall. Daughter of Lucian and Celeste. Last heir of the Silver Moon Pack. I claim the Moonstone Amulet as my birthright and bind it to my bloodline. I accept the duty of guardian. I accept the responsibility of protection. I will not let it fall into darkness. The amulet flared blindingly bright. Power shot through me, not painful, but overwhelming. I felt the magic of the amulet connecting to something deep inside me, to the core of my wolf, to the very essence of who I was. The bond formed in an instant, absolute and unbreakable. When the light faded, I was still holding the amulet. But now it felt like part of me. An extension of my will. No. I spun. Theron stood in the entrance to the great hall, his face twisted with rage. Blood covered his clothes, and he was breathing hard. Behind him, I could hear fighting still, but his focus was entirely on me. You bonded with it. His voice was low, dangerous. You actually bonded with it. Do you have any idea what you've done? I stopped you. I stood, my hand closing around the amulet. It's over, Theron. The amulet is mine. You've lost. Lost? He laughed, and it was the sound of madness. I didn't spend 70 years planning this to be stopped by a child. If I can't have the amulet's power, then neither can you. I'll kill you, take it from your corpse, and find another way to bond with it. He shifted, a huge dark brown wolf with scarred flanks and eyes that burned with hatred. He lunged. I barely had time to shift before he was on me. We crashed together, rolling across the broken floor. His jaws snapped inches from my throat. His claws tore at my sides. He was bigger, stronger, more experienced. But I had something he didn't. I had the amulet. Help me, I thought desperately. Show me how to use you. The response was immediate. Power flooded through me, and suddenly I understood. The amulet didn't just control other lichens, it enhanced the wielder's abilities. Made them stronger. Faster. More dangerous. I twisted out of Theron's grip with speed I shouldn't have possessed. My claws raked across his face, and he yelped. Before he could recover, I was on him, my jaws closing on his throat. Seraphine, stop. Kale's voice. I looked up and saw him standing in the entrance, Magnus and Esme behind him. All three were covered in blood, but they were alive. Don't kill him, Kale said, his silver eyes intense. He deserves to face justice. To answer for his crimes in front of all the packs. I wanted to argue. Wanted to end this here and now. But Kale was right. Theron needed to face what he'd done publicly. The packs needed to know the truth. Reluctantly, I released him. Theron collapsed, gasping. Magnus moved forward with silver chains, one of the few things that could hold a lichen, and bound him. It's over, I said, shifting back to human form. My body was covered in cuts and bruises, and I was so exhausted I could barely stand. We won. Not quite. Kale's expression was anguished as he looked at me. Seraphine, the curse. The blood debt. The full moon is at its peak, we have maybe minutes before. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I could feel it, a coldness spreading through my veins. The curse activating. What do we do? Panic clawed at my throat. The amulet, can it break the curse? No. The curse is older magic. Blood magic that demands payment. Kale came to me, taking my face in his hands. Through the bond, I felt his desperation, his fear. There's only one way to break it. A sacrifice of equal power. What kind of sacrifice? My power as Leakin King. His thumbs brushed my cheekbones. I can bind my life force to yours, channel my power into breaking the curse. But it will strip away everything that makes me king. My strength, my authority, my connection to the crown. I'll be just a Leakin. Nothing special. You'll lose everything, I whispered. I'll lose you if I don't. His smile was sad. That's not a choice, Seraphine. That's not even close to a choice. But your people need you. You're their king. They need me to be honorable. To put what's right above what's easy. He pressed his forehead to mine. And you are my mate. My true mate. The other half of my soul. I choose you. I will always choose you. Tears burned in my eyes. Kale. No arguments. We don't have time. He took my hands, positioning them so we were palm to palm. The mate bond ritual. It's powerful enough to break the curse if I channel everything I have through it. But Seraphine, once it's done, the bond will be complete. Permanent. Our souls will be tied together for the rest of our lives. You need to be sure. I'm sure. I squeezed his hands. Do it. He smiled, really smiled, open and genuine. Then he began to speak in a language I didn't recognize, ancient words that made the air shimmer with power. The mate bond between us flared to life, visible as silver light connecting our chests. Through the bond, I felt Kale's power flowing into me. Massive, ancient power that had been building for over a century. It burned through the curse like sunlight through fog, scouring away the blood magic that had been killing me. But I also felt what it cost him. The connection to every Leakin in the realm, severed. The enhanced strength and speed that made him more than just an alpha, fading. The very essence of what made him Leakin King, draining away. Stop, I gasped. Kale, it's too much. Not negotiable, he gritted out, and poured more power into the bond. The curse shattered. I felt it break apart like glass, the fragments dissolving into nothing. The cold in my veins vanished, replaced by warmth. Life. And when the light faded, Kale collapsed into my arms. No. I lowered him to the ground, panic seizing my chest. Kale, stay with me. Please. His eyes opened. They were still silver, still beautiful. But the intensity was diminished, he looked almost mortal. I'm okay. Just weak. Takes time to adjust. You gave up everything for me. Worth it. He managed a tired smile. Besides, you're an alpha now. The Silver Moon pack needs to be rebuilt, and you're the one to do it. I'll just be your mate. Support you. I think I'll like that. I laughed through my tears. You absolute idiot. I love you. I love you too. He touched my face. Have since the moment I saw you. Since before I even knew who you were. I kissed him then, there in the ruins of my family's home, surrounded by the evidence of battle. The mate bond sang between us, complete now. Permanent. Magnus cleared his throat. My king, former king, we should get you both back to Shadowmere. You need medical attention, and we need to secure Theron before. A scream cut him off. I spun. Esme was backing away from Theron, horror on her face. The counselor was laughing despite his chains, blood bubbling from his mouth. You think you've won? He coughed. You don't even know what's coming. The massacre wasn't just me. I had partners. Powerful ones. They know about the girl now. They'll come for her. For the amulet. This is just the beginning. Then his eyes rolled back, and he went still. Dead, From his wounds or from poison, I couldn't tell. Silence fell over the ruins. Magnus moved to check the body. Then looked up grimly. Poison. Hidden in a false tooth. He took it rather than face capture. Partners, I whispered, still holding Kale. He said he had partners. That the massacre wasn't just him. Kale struggled to sit up, and I helped support him. We'll deal with it. Together. You're not alone anymore, Seraphine. You have me, you have Magnus, you have warriors who will follow you. And you have that. He nodded at the amulet, which I'd somehow maintained my grip on throughout everything. I looked down at the moonstone amulet. It pulsed warmly against my palm, no longer just an object but a part of me. Through it, I could feel something. Connections to other lichens, threads of power that the amulet could touch. The potential for protection or control, depending on how it was wielded. The packs need to know the truth, I said, standing and helping Kale to his feet. About the massacre. About Theron. About me. They will. Magnus moved to support Kale's other side. We'll call a gathering. All the alphas. You'll address them as the Silver Moon heir. And as Kale's mate, Esme added quietly. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by guilt but sincere. You'll unite the packs, Seraphine. The way your parents would have wanted. The journey back to Shadowmere was slower, more careful. Kale's warriors carried the wounded and the dead. We'd lost 12 fighters in the battle, and many more were injured. I walked beside Kale, supporting him when he stumbled, until Magnus finally insisted we both ride. I climbed onto Shadow with Kale behind me, his arms wrapped around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. Through the mate bond, I could feel his exhaustion, but also his contentment. He'd given up his crown, his power, everything, and he had no regrets. Thank you, I thought to him. For saving me. For choosing me. Always, came his response. In every lifetime, I would choose you. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. True to his word, Magnus called a gathering of all the alphas at Shadowmere. They came reluctantly, many suspicious of why their king had summoned them so urgently. When they arrived to find Kale weakened and a strange young woman wearing the Moonstone amulet, the tension was palpable. But Kale stood before them, no longer their king in power, but still commanding in presence, and told them everything. The massacre. Theron's betrayal. My identity as the Silver Moon heir. The blood debt and the curse and the sacrifice he'd made. I am no longer your Lichen king, Kale said, his voice carrying through the great hall. I gave that power willingly to save my mate's life. But before you stands Seraphine Silvermoon, daughter of Lucian and Celeste, last heir of the Silver Moon pack. She bears the Moonstone amulet, bonded to her bloodline as it was meant to be. And I ask you, as a simple Lichen now, with no authority but the truth, to acknowledge her claim and help her rebuild what was destroyed. The Alphas murmured among themselves. Then Alpha Grayson of Bloodcrest, the one Magnus had warned me about, stood. He was massive, scarred, with eyes that had seen too much violence. I tensed, expecting a challenge. Instead, he dropped to one knee. The Silver Moon pack were honorable. Their destruction was a crime that has haunted our kind for 70 years. If their heir lives, if she truly bears Lucian's blood, then I will support her claim. And I will help hunt down whoever else was involved in the massacre. One by one, the other alphas followed suit. Kneeling. Pledging their support. By the end of the gathering, I had the backing of every major pack in the realm. I was no longer just Sarah Ashwood, the unwanted human girl. I was Seraphine Silvermoon, alpha of the Silver Moon pack. Rebuilding took time. With the help of the other packs, we restored the ruins of my family's territory. The Great Hall was reconstructed, its walls rising once again from the ashes. Lichens who had been displaced or orphaned came to join us, drawn by the legend of the Silver Moon pack's return. Kale stood beside me through all of it. No longer king, but my mate, my partner, my equal. He helped train the new warriors, advised me on politics and pack dynamics, and at night, held me while I processed the weight of everything I'd inherited. The mate bond between us grew stronger every day. I could feel his emotions as clearly as my own, and he could sense mine. It should have been invasive, but instead, it felt right. Complete. Esme, to her credit, threw herself into helping. She'd lost her position as Lady of Shadowmere when Kale gave up the crown, but she didn't complain. She worked alongside the lowest Omega, proving through action that her remorse was genuine. Slowly, I found myself trusting her. Even liking her. Magnus remained Kale's beta, and became mine as well when I asked. Someone needs to keep you two idealistic fools alive, he'd grumbled, but I'd seen the approval in his golden eyes. 3 months after the battle, Kale and I were married in a ceremony that united not just our lives but our packs. Shadowmere and the Silver Moon territories became one, ruled jointly by Alpha Seraphine and her mate. It was unprecedented, a new model for how Leakin packs could operate. The other alphas watched with interest. Some with approval. Others with barely concealed envy. But we were strong together, Kale and I, stronger than either of us had been alone. 6 months after the battle, on a night when the moon was full and bright, I stood in the rebuilt Great Hall and looked at everything we'd accomplished. The hall was filled with Lycans, my pack, celebrating the completion of the restoration. Music played, people danced, and for the first time in 70 years, the Silver Moon territory rang with laughter. Kale found me standing by the window, looking out over the land. He wrapped his arms around me from behind, pulling me against his chest. Happy, he murmured into my hair. Yes. I leaned into him, feeling the mate bond humming contentedly between us. Are you? Do you regret giving up the crown? Not for a second. He turned me to face him, his silver eyes warm. I was king for 100 years, Seraphine. I was powerful and respected and completely alone. Now I'm just a Leakin, but I have you. I have a purpose that matters. I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. I kissed him, deep and lingering. When we pulled apart, I rested my forehead against his. I love you. I love you too. My fierce little alpha. We stood there together, watching our pack celebrate, and I felt a peace I'd never known before. I'd found my true identity, my true family, my true home. Everything seemed perfect. But in the shadows at the edge of the room, someone watched us with ancient, calculating eyes. A figure no one else seemed to notice, dressed in traveling clothes covered with the dust of long roads. The figure studied Seraphine carefully, noting the way she held herself, the silver glow of the amulet visible at her throat, the mark on her wrist. After a long moment, the figure smiled, though there was no warmth in the expression. Then, as silently as they'd arrived, they slipped back into the darkness and disappeared. Epilogue. The message arrived 3 days later. I was in the Great Hall reviewing requests from pack members when Magnus brought it to me, his expression troubled. This was found at the border. Pinned to a tree with a silver dagger. The scout said there were no tracks, no scent. Whoever left it didn't want to be followed. The parchment was old, yellowed with age, sealed with wax that bore a symbol I didn't recognize, a wolf and a crescent moon intertwined. My fingers trembled slightly as I broke the seal and unfolded it. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned. Dear Seraphine. Or should I call you by your true name, the one whispered in prophecy, the one your parents hoped to protect you from? You've done well, child. Reclaiming your heritage, bonding with the amulet, uniting the packs. Your mother would be proud. But there are things you don't know. Truths your parents died trying to hide. The massacre wasn't about power or politics. It was about preventing a prophecy from coming true. A prophecy about you. Theron was just a pawn, girl. A useful fool. The real architects of your family's destruction are still out there, still watching, still waiting. And now that you've announced yourself to the world, now that you've bonded with the amulet, their waiting is over. I can help you. I'm one of the few who survived that night, one of the Silver Moon Pack's inner circle. I know what your parents knew. I know what they died protecting. And I know what's coming for you. If you want answers, come to the Blackwood Crossroads on the night of the new moon. Come alone. Tell no one, not your mate, not your beta, no one. If you bring anyone, I'll disappear, and you'll never learn the truth about who you really are. The choice is yours, Seraphine Silvermoon. But choose quickly. The darkness gathering at your borders won't wait forever. A ghost from your past. I read the letter 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each pass. A survivor from the massacre. Someone who knew my parents. Someone who knew about a prophecy. Seraphine? Magnus' voice seemed to come from far away. What does it say? I looked up and realized Cale had entered the hall, drawn by the disturbance in the mate bond. His silver eyes found mine, questioning, concerned. I should tell them. Should show them the letter and discuss what to do together. But the letter's warning echoed in my mind, come alone. Tell no one. If you bring anyone, I'll disappear, and you'll never learn the truth. Truths my parents died trying to hide. A prophecy about me. The real architects of my family's destruction. It's nothing, I heard myself say, folding the letter and slipping it into my pocket. Just a congratulations message from one of the border territories. Nothing important. Cale's eyes narrowed slightly. He could feel through the bond that I wasn't telling the complete truth. But before he could push, an Omega rushed in with news of a dispute that needed my attention, and the moment passed. That night, lying in bed beside Cale, I stared at the ceiling and felt the weight of the letter in the drawer beside me. The new moon was 8 days away. 8 days to decide if I would risk everything for answers about my past. 8 days to decide if I would lie to my mate and walk into what could very well be a trap. Through the open window, I could see the moon, waning now, growing darker each night. And somewhere in that darkness, someone was waiting. Someone who claimed to have answers about who I really was. Someone who might be the key to stopping whatever was coming. Or someone who would be my destruction. Trust yourself, the white wolf had said in my dreams. But as I lay there in the darkness, feeling Cale's steady breathing beside me and the weight of leadership pressing down on my chest, I wasn't sure I knew who myself was anymore. Was I Sarah Ashwood, the unwanted human girl? Was I Seraphine Silvermoon, the alpha rebuilding her family's legacy? Or was I something else entirely, something my parents had died trying to protect me from, something prophesied, something dangerous? I didn't know. But in 8 days, I was going to find out. Even if it meant lying to everyone I loved. Even if it meant walking alone into the darkness. Even if it cost me everything I'd fought so hard to build. The letter had promised answers. And I was going to get them. No matter the price. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and like this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also, to appreciate this community too. I would like to know the country in which you are in, listening to this story. Which country is that? Please comment below.